How much currency will it take to be able to retire modestly in the days ahead? Probably more than anybody has ever imagined. Why? Because they keep moving the goalposts further and further ahead of us, which basically means that retirement concept, as I've always said, is not going to play out like we all intended. All right, so I'm back behind the computer. Took a couple of days off to get away to clean my mind, feeling refreshed and back at it. And I wanted to shoot a little RTD quick take because it's been a while since I've done a pre-recorded video. And so I came across an interesting article that was done by a prior guest here on RTD. And it really caught my attention because if you guys know, I love watching and seeing visual aids to really paint a very detailed picture as to how the current circumstances we're experiencing are continually changing in a not so good way. And so I came across an article the other day. I think I shared it on the Facebook as well as a Twitter page, but it has to do with the fact that it says here, the new savings target for a modest retirement is $8 million. And so $8 million. Wow. Like who would have ever imagined, say, a year ago or 10 years ago that the ideal number that would be needed in order to live, as it says here, modestly would be $8 million. And once again, as we know from all the stats, as well as what I'm going to show you in a minute, majority of the Americans in this country here do not even have much of a savings, nevertheless has put aside anything for a rainy day. So I want to be quick and short and just share with you some things here because I think this article here does a great job of really highlighting some things that I think everyone needs to continuously be reminded of, as well as I would encourage you guys, click beneath this video here and share this article with your family and friends so they can see what's really going on outside of the hot air that we're being sold from the mainstream news. But give an idea here, this article came out and it's talking about basically at the end of the day, when you factor in the conditions we're in now, the fact that we're at basically negative rates here, in order to actually utilize that retirement rule of being able to set aside enough funds to be able to withdraw 4% once you retire, is dead. And so here it says the 4% rule as a safe withdrawal rate in retirement is dead. And if you want to find out more, feel free to read more about it. But yet the idea of the 60-40 split of having a good portion in bonds, a good portion in equities will no longer turn out to be good for majority of Americans, given the fact that the markets are overly inflated as well as artificial. And the Federal Reserve has officially weaponized the Federal Reserve note, AKA anything that's denominated in Federal Reserve note terms will be subject to some type of issues in the days ahead, unless, of course, you are in the metal sector. But yet, as you guys know, I've talked about retirement for quite some time now. And so I just thought I would just pull this up. Retirement with Rethinking a Dollar. And I've been talking about the pension crisis. And what really came to mind about this current article I want to read is that I did a video a year ago. It says why 1 million is not enough for retirement. And I even put together a little visual aid for the audience as well. And I'll link that below if you guys want to find out more about that. But just highlighting a year ago as to why $1 million is completely crazy. And so I want to get further. And so here's an article here that I just came out today from Lance Roberts. It says the 4% rule is dead. What should retirees do? And so I had a chance to have Lance on the show a year ago, last summer, actually 4 days from this current point last year. And this is right before the whole repo situation unfolded. But yet we're talking about how clearly the credit market was going to be a major issue as we were witnessing the LIBOR situation beginning to unravel, heading into the new method that the U.S. was going to use for the interbank lending window model. And so I also put that video beneath if you guys are interested in watching it. But it's real sweet and simple. Here's an article here that I think everybody should read because it is definitely worth your time. I'll just skim through the surface to give you guys something to chew on. But here he just basically elaborated on that first article that came out about the $8 million. And he actually put some graphs, helps it to make a lot more sense. And so give an idea here, it says the idea of the 4% rule originally suggested that once retired, the portfolio allocation is shifted to ultra safe treasury bonds. Such an allocation shifted provided for the income required to live on plus a government guarantee of the principal. Here's the problem. When the 4% rule was put in place, treasury yields were 5%. Today, they are half of a point and probably going a lot lower than that. But yeah, here we have a visual right here just showing how over time, the dwindling of the interest rates and what you can actually earn from lending your money to the government has dwindled down to basically nothing. Factor in inflation, you're basically negative already. It says this is a massive problem for retirees today. As shown, the 1 million will no longer generate a $50,000 income for retirement. Today is just $6,900 a year, $6,900 a year. And then here's a visual aid to go along with that, same exact thing. So using the $1 million mark as a benchmark to measure against for what you want to be able to withdraw from in the form of income. And so here, 1998, $56,000 given an environment we were in then. And so as of today, given the environment we're in, $6,900. So imagine we're just beginning 2020 in a sense, or we're just beginning this new decade of complete turmoil. And so it's good to say that by the end of this year, it's going to be probably a lot lower than that. Next graph here says even more shocking has been the speed of the change. It says in 2016, it took roughly 5 million to generate 50,000 a year. Just 4 years later, that number has skyrocketed to over 8 million. So once again, negative rates, 0% interest rates, and all the issues we're having globally. You factor in the cover up of a pandemic. This spells complete chaos and the idea that there will be no comfortable retirement in the days ahead. Mathematically speaking, it's impossible. And so here's just a visual here. Read more for yourself. And then we get into some of the problems. It says for both young savers and boomers approaching retirement, the challenges of planning for retirement today are daunting. And then it gives 4 problems here. I'll just thumb through them briefly, let you read it for yourself. Problem number 1. Very few people have $8 million. And here's a visual right here. It says almost 60% of the working age individuals do not own assets in a retirement account. And so between ages 21 to 64, 59.3% of people do not have anything set aside that will be considered something workable for retirement. It says a typical working age household has $0 in retirement account assets. So yeah, problem number 2. Can't save for retirement. It says the ability for people to save money has become substantially more problematic. And so it talks about the fact that they continue increasing debt with the fact that the cost of living is going up. And not to mention that this whole year will be a shift in how employment is actually even fulfilled. But yet, here's a visual right here. It says debt-driven consumption retards economic growth. Problem number 3, don't forget inflation. So once again, the ideal scenario is that being able to put $1 million aside and withdraw something healthy will be worthwhile, but yet you give it in the fact that the Federal Reserve note has been weaponized. There's no actual amount you can set aside that will not be destroyed by the expansion of the monetary base in this next couple of weeks and months and years ahead for sure. Here's a visual aid here. It says 1 million doesn't cut it anymore. And it shows over time due to inflation, the amount of purchasing power off $1 million is not what it used to be. Gives more visual aids here. It says problem number 4, starting your plan with the wrong estimate, or as I would like to say, starting your plan with outdated information. And what do I mean by outdated information? Simply put, financial advice is predominantly given still to this day is very old school and outdated. It's information that was given, as the graphs show here, given decades ago for sure, when the whole idea of shifting responsibility from the pension system into the 401k model was designed to alleviate the burden off of employers and shift it onto employees, given the fact that no one ever took into consideration the amount of danger that monetary and fiscal policy will play in the years ahead as the government grew, as well as the credit market and the wealth inequality continue to rise, creating that much more of a gap and making it harder for people to sustain their lives, given the fact that the purchasing power of the Federal Reserve note has completely basically went belly up. Ended with this example here. It says, let's set up a simplistic example. John is 23 years old and earns $40,000 a year. He saves $14 a day. At 67, he will have 1 million saved up, assuming he actually gets that 6% annual rate of return. And of course, we know the 6% annual rate of return is no longer, will never be the case. And more than likely, because of the weaponization of the Federal Reserve System, as well as the global central banks doing the same thing, those type of returns will not come in a safe manner. It's going to require more risk on you. It says he withdraws 4% of the balance to live on matching his $40,000 annual income. And so that was pretty much the ideal pathway that they tell kids to this day. Set aside some as soon as you can, because compound interest means that it'll grow over time. Okay, compound interest. I haven't heard any mainstream pundits yet mention compound inflation, but yet, once again, you heard it here first. Anyway, here, more graphs here just to show how basically the model of retiring is not sustainable anymore. And so the article talks about at the very beginning, what's the best way? What should retirees do now? And of course, at this current moment, everybody knows what is the best thing to do, and it happens to be the idea of getting your weight up. And so my personal opinion, once again, is the best thing you can do in this current environment is take advantage of the manipulation for as long as it continues on, as well as creating an environment where you're less dependent upon the system and more self-sufficient for yourself. And so once again, I thought I would share this because I thought this would be definitely worth hearing about. And so once again, information for you to consider, because the concept of retirement in this decade will no longer be what it was at the beginning of this year, as well as in previous years and decades. So something worth your time there. And as always, for those that are interested, I want to bring to attention an opportunity here, some information here. I partner with my good friends over at Portfolio Wealth Global here. And so here's a special report that's available if you guys are interested. I'll put the link down below. Definitely all the information I'm going to bring to you is more education to provide you information so that you can make the right decisions for yourself. Other than that, see you tonight. Enjoy the rest of your day.